going to, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Once again, it's your favorite podcast, the one and only world famous Keepin It Rio. This is episode number 205, folks. And today, it's actually tonight where we're recording this now. This is actually a Saturday evening podcast recording, which is one of my favorite times to do it because we're kicked back, we're having fun. We've got our nice beverages here ready to rock and roll. And I've got myself an incredible guest. We just met about 5 minutes ago, but we've already had an enlightening conversation. And I just realized, hey, you know what? We should hit record and share this stuff with the world so that they understand that we are two of the top people in this podcasting world. And we're not just saying it to ourselves. We need to let everybody know. So without any hesitation, folks, let me welcome my guest to the show today. I'm looking right now at the Facebook for my intro stuff, my points here. I'm going to go with sales director at Round Guys Brewing Company, former DJ talk show host and current talk show host at I'm Tellin You. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, this is Philly D. Welcome, my friend, to Keepin It Rio. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, fam? How's everybody doing? It is an absolute pleasure. Yeah, we had a nice little warm-up convo, which we had talked privately before that and found out that we have very similar styles. And I was like, hey, you and me, regardless if this turns out well or not, I mean, like you were saying, we were having a great conversation. It's like, oh crap, we should hit record. I'm having a blast already. And that's honestly what I'm trying to do is whether it's recorded or not, I want to be a better me. I want to live a really good life. And you're helping me do that. So, what's up? And thanks for the good intro, bro. Appreciate that.
That's my thing. It goes downhill from the intro typically, but I'm pretty good at the first 30 seconds of the show. And we'll see how it goes from that point. But I always like to kind of start off as the interviewer, if you will. And it's like this. Philly D, tell my audience a little bit about yourself, my friend, and then we will just see where this conversation goes.
All right. Quick story. Born in Spain, raised in Southern California in a Mexican barrio outside of Los Angeles. So occasionally you'll hear un poco español, mainly like Spanglish. Yeah, I'm a massive hood rat. I love lowriders, tacos, tequila. I'm a retired master technician in the automotive industry. I'm also a retired chef and restaurateur because I will never own any of those businesses ever again, even though I love the ever-living crap out of them. Yeah, but I have a bachelor's in business and a minor in psychology, so I love the idea of understanding how money works and businesses work, but also because we have to understand that they're all done by humans. We have to do that too. So I'm just multifaceted and yet a giant child, even though I'm a responsible father and community member. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot more to me than that, but that's kind of there you go.
It's a good kickoff to the show. So let's start with something that immediately catches my attention, restaurateur. I have had several restaurateurs on the show. I myself in a previous life had a little bit of experience in that. Tell me why it is that you guarantee beyond a shadow of a doubt that you shall never get back into the restaurant industry again, because I always love to hear these stories because it's an interesting industry to say the least.
All right. So, I mean, I would say if it never happens, it's only because of one single thing, because this one single thing would be a way for me to actually get back into it. And the likelihood of getting there is not going to happen. I would love to establish my own sense of like a Disney World type, because I am building a production company. And if I'm going to do that, I want a complete, I want a pavilion beyond belief. I want a small town and do all that kind of stuff. In that scenario, yes, I would still have additional restaurants and I would oversee them. However, you're talking about billions of dollars. I'm 46. The likelihood of actually getting there, I mean, while I'm focused on it, probably not going to happen. So outside of that, I'm never going to go back to restaurants, because as much fun as it is, as amazing as the relationships are, and I love seeing people's faces when they have an amazing experience doing that, it sucks. Everything about it sucks. You the hours, the looking at the schedules, checking out your P&Ls. I mean, just going over your percentages. And mind you, as a chef coming into the industry, my average food cost was like 11%, which is unheard of. but it's because I did such a stripped down menu. I was very specific in what I did and why I did it, that I was able to get away with it. And I paid my people very well, because I mean, my labor at that point was like 30-ish%. So I had that nice swap over on it. But it's just, you're constantly checking your numbers. The smallest thing can change your entire future, and you have no control over it whatsoever. So, I mean, to me, the food industry is probably the touchiest business you could ever be a part of. It can change at the drop of a hat, and even faster than that. And you can be as amazing as you are, and you may not be able to pivot. It's just, no. Plus
I
the hours
totally
suck.
get it. Yeah, the hours suck. And let's just be quite honest, the customers are not always the most enjoyable people to deal with. And that was my downfall. I worked in many restaurants, and I tell people, it was the precursor to my career in the roofing industry, which, if there's anything more thankless than fast food or restaurants, it is roofing. And I've had to deal with some wonderful human beings over the course of the last 27 years in this. And I think that my preparation was working in a service industry where you have to feed people, and you have to listen to all their complaints, and you have to be talked to like you're low life garbage, when in reality, flip the script, homie. But it's a wonderful thing, and I enjoyed it, but I also hated every second of it at the same time. So totally understood. And who's to say that we don't have Philly World at some point in the next couple years anyway? And, couple $1 billion. I mean, well, that's still reasonable. I think we could still happen.
Yeah, it's not a no. It's a not guaranteed. I still aim for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, going back to what you were saying, I've fired customers, and that felt so good. Most people won't do that.
To do.
But one of my biggest things was I worked very hard with my staff to make sure that we had all of the faculties and resources in place where I could literally let my people just roam free, and I knew they were going to crush it. So if I got a complaint from one of my customers about one of my staff, pretty much walking to the table, I know they're going to be full of shit. Period, point blank. Like, I had that much trust and faith in my staff's ability. That's pretty much what was going to happen. So yeah, there was plenty of times where I just straight out fired the customer. I'm like, here's the deal. I'm going to go ahead and just take care of this bill for you. You all have a great evening. Finish your meals. Please take care of my server. I'm not expecting you to do so because you're seeming to have issues with it. But here's the deal: is once you're done with this lovely experience that we're going to make sure you have, you're not welcome here anymore. Please don't come back. And I do it as calmly and polite as possible. And I'll do this. I mean, I've done it on a Friday, Saturday night with packed dining rooms. And I just, right down next to them, eye to eye, just, hey guys, here's the deal. Just control the situation. But at the same time, you're not going to F with my people. They are my family. You can kick rocks.
It's that simple, folks. Be a good customer, and you won't ever have to experience that. But it is one of the things that we look forward to sometimes in that industry, because it's just fun, and I can respect it 100%. So I get that aspect of life. I appreciate the fact that at 46, you've retired from multiple ventures as well. That's quite noble. And as you continue to evolve as a person, you have now found yourself as a individual. I see you're having a nice drink. Tell me a little bit about the beverage you're drinking right now, my friend, and tell me about the origin of that beverage.
Oh my God. You have no idea. This is an amazing story. So the fact that you're even asking that, totally not planned, people. Totally not planned.
Not at all.
This is the #1 seller by my sponsor, which also happens to be the company I run, but that's why they're our sponsor. Yeah, it's good to play leverage a little bit on that one. But this is called Liquid Swords, which is GZA from Wu-Tang. This was his first album that he ever put out. It was, GZA and RZA. So that was one of the first 4 albums put out after 36 Chambers. But long story short is our head brewer, well, actually our brewmaster and our brewer's assistant had made this beer, and they were drinking it on a Tuesday morning off what we call the brewer's handle. And that's where you put on the newest brew and you check it out and whatever. And they're drinking this before it's been named, and they're just trying it out. Like, what do we think this should be? And the 2 of them are now at, again, like 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, having multiples of these. I come in at 11 to open up the kitchen, They're now half cocked because this is a 9.6 double hazy imperial IPA that drinks immaculate. This is by far one of my absolute favorite beers. It's damn near 10%. This will put pretty much anybody on their butt. These two included. So they're half wasted. I come in, I'm like, la la, doing my thing. And they just have to tell me this story where the two of them are trying the beers off the brewer's handle. And they're literally having two conversations with each other, but not together. So the one's talking to the other one, and the other one's talking to the other one, and they think the other one's listening, but they're not hearing each other until the pivotal moment where the one guy literally just goes, we don't have a Wu-Tang beer yet. And the other guy is going, dude, this beer will cut you like liquid swords. And the two of them are just like, what? Like aha moment. So, I mean, you can't write this stuff. They're telling me this at like 11 o'clock, just drunk off their butts. And I'm like, this is one of the most amazing stories I've ever had. I now need to try this beer. I tried it, and this was 8 years ago. Still one of my favorites.
Haven't put it down since, folks. So there you go. That is a true endorsement of the Wu-Tang Clan. And that's the first time I've ever heard of a beer that was named after Wu-Tang. I absolutely respect it. Tell me a little bit more about this life in the brewery and some of the other things that you guys have going on there, because I've never had a master brewer on Keepin It Rio until right now.
Oh, well, so, all right. I mean, so I came into the company a little over 10 years ago as a consulting chef. So I used to have a small consulting firm that I ran by myself, but I had other friends from separate industries that, depending on what business called me in, I would bring some of those friends in and have us, run the analytics. So we'd find the data that was pertinent, collect it, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, getting in with this company, I did it as a chef. Basically treated them so well, showed them what I was working with, that they're like, oh crap, we need to do another location. And it's like, yeah, I'll partner with you. And that was literally the last restaurant I had, which was phenomenal. I mean, it was by far the greatest restaurant I've had in all of them. But, at this point you're talking about several deep that I've either owned or operated. So it's like, I should be good at it by now. But I do that. We wind up selling the restaurant, and then the pandemic hits, and we're all, sitting at home spending our own money because we were business owners, not employees. So we didn't get hooked up like everybody else. But we wind up at that point, my guys are stressed. They can't get any staff. And I go in the one day just to see my dude and give him a hug. And I'm like, your wife's pissy. You're miserable. This is not happening. I was like, I'm now your sales rep. That was like 3-ish years ago. Now, fast forward, I run the company for them coming in because I've learned every piece of it. I've known these guys for so long. I know what they are trying to do, and I have the time to do it. They have other businesses that they run. So it just became this thing where, with all of my business background, my ability to run companies, as it were, know the logistics legally and monetarily, that I was able to do all that stuff. And being a chef by trade, I have a palate. So for me to step in to do this kind of work was, it was supposed to happen. I didn't realize it, but
you were born for this position, and I can respect that. That's very honorable, and you're bringing some stuff to the world that we need. How many different assortments do you guys currently make?
So typically we used to carry on the average of like 36 different lines per year. I got to a place where obviously efficiency comes from smaller production numbers as far as like your different lines. So I've been shrinking that down. So currently we run approximately 8 staples, meaning we have 8 different beers that we make continuously year round. And then we modify it with a few additional seasonals that we pop in throughout the different quarters. So with all of that, the average is we're running about 16, at best 20 different beers that we make a year, because we also do some contract work as well. So we don't even just put our stuff out, but we do make beer for other companies, as well as we make one-off private labels for bars and restaurants.
I love it. And I've got just one more question about the brewery, and then we will shift into something completely different.
I don't care. We'll talk about whatever, bro.
Production and distribution. Where are you guys available in the world? Can people in San Antonio, Texas, go find some Wu-Tang beers? What does that look like as an IPA per se? And
so
how does that work?
Yeah. Currently, we are only found in Pennsylvania. We do have distribution in Jersey. We're about to get into New York. We have been in Maryland and Delaware, but we pulled back on those because we just didn't really have the true faculties to support that. It was costing us more than it was making us in a sense. But at the place that we're at now, me taking over as director of sales, I also just took over operations as well. So I literally run the company minus, my buddy who owns it, who's CEO. But he basically is just like, hey, this is where we're going. I'm like, cool, I'll just take us there. We're good. But I'm in a place where this beer specifically, my view of it is this should be a national well-known beer. So my job is in the next 2 to 3 years is to get this beer in many states as possible. But unfortunately, yeah, we're only in the tri-state area, as we would call it, Jersey, PA, going into New York. However, if you're a distributor and you would love to try this out, let me know. I will send you some. If you like it, we can work a deal out. So yeah, we can go into other states. We just need distributors to pick us up. We haven't done it yet, but that's what I'm working on now.
There you go. And that was the whole point of that question. Distributors, we need to get some of this stuff in Texas. We need to get in California. We need to get all over the country. Let's let Keepin It Rio be one of those sources where somebody's watching right now that just happens to be in beer distribution that I've never met before in my life. And they're like, you know what? That's a good idea. So we're going to get you into the United States much quicker because of the far-reaching appeal of this podcast to my peeps. And, that's one of those stories where 5 years from now, I'm going to be like, hey, I helped with that. So good deal, my man.
You know what? Oddly enough, I was watching a clip the other day, and the individual that I was watching is very much about helping other YouTubers do their thing. And one of the things that he had mentioned that, I'm obviously aware of, but it never really sank in until I heard him say it. You never know when somebody's watching. You could have 3 views on one episode, but that third view could be somebody of extreme importance or ability, and they're just like, I get this person. This is what I've been looking for. And they just hit you up. They're like, hey, by the way, would you like this ability? You're like, wait, what? This is an amazing option. Like, you never know who's watching. So just put your best foot forward. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. As long as at the end of the day, you can look yourself in the mirror, you're crushing.
That's exactly right. And I love looking in the mirror. It's one of my favorite things to do. Every single day I make it a point. And maybe there are 3 people watching this episode. It's been 205 episodes. Hopefully at this point, we've got at least 3 that will see it. I stated earlier, my goal is to take out Joe Rogan. So, 3 is a pretty good number. I could use a couple more, but if that third person is what it takes to get us over the top, then there we go. Hopefully that person's watching right now, and they just had a life-changing moment where they thought, I need to touch base with these guys because they got it figured out. So that's pretty good. I've always wanted to know a little bit about the brewery. Back in the day, my dad used to make home brew in the 80s and 90s, and I learned a valuable lesson about home brew back in the day is that if you put it in the right color bottle, it almost looks the same as water. And I realized at a young age that I could borrow some off the shelf and then I could fill the bottles back up with water. And about 10 years after the fact, my dad found out about it. But I consider myself a connoisseur of fine brews as well, based on that young experience as a young teenager. And I apologize to all the parents of my friends back then because you probably just learned something that you didn't know. So there you go.
Oh, yeah. Cat's out of the bag. You can't put monkey back in the cage on that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, there's a statute of limitations.
That's all, yeah.
We're good. So, okay, enough about the brewery. We're going to get that worldwide distribution going. That right there was our role for that segment of Keepin It Rio. We're talking tonight on some audio equipment. I've got my microphone. Most of my guests that I get on the show do not have headphones and microphones in their immediate possession. You, my friend, have got what appears to be a professional setup. So tell me a little bit about this. I know you didn't run out today and buy all this stuff because you're going to be on Keepin It Rio with some dude you've never met before. So what's the origin of this equipment that you've got here that you're coming to us live with at this very moment?
Yeah, so I'm using a Rodecaster Pro 2 soundboard. It's kind of the standard in the industry. I'm also using the Rode Pod mic, which is standard in the industry. They are, while entry level, meaning on the cheaper side, they are damn good quality and worth every penny. But yeah, no, I have a production company that I've been putting together for the past 4 years with my co-host and bestest friend of all my life. We've literally been together for 33 years as best friends. It's been an amazing ride. We've always just had these amazing, deep conversations, no matter what the subject is. It could be the most asinine thing. Like we could be talking about candy or, wormholes, but we're going to wax intellects as if it was freaking, philosophical debate of sorts. We're over here is like Socrates and freaking Descartes and crap and rocking it. But, we're going to throw in some movie quotes and dad jokes. That's why I said Socrates instead of Socrates. It's a Bill and Ted's reference. Yeah, we do that. We speak fluent movie and all that good stuff. But yeah, we have a fully functioning studio. I also make side content as my own personality type, Philly D. That is my character that I play on the YouTubes and such. You would say the TV, but it's your viewing device. But yeah, we have monikers so that we can separate ourselves because there's legality and things of that nature you got to be aware of. But yeah, we have a full functioning production company that we've been building. We have tons of extra content that we're in the middle of designing, and I mean literal full other functioning shows, scripts. We're talking like character development. Pretty much all of it. We're building a legitimate production company. That's why I said before, as you called it, Philly World. It wouldn't be called that, but yeah, we do want a huge, main, massive, just giant company that does all of these things. From a business standpoint, it makes sense to have as many, spots to fold the cash as possible. But at the same time, it's just, if you're going to do it, you want to have as much control over each piece as possible. And if you're going to have all those pieces, you're best to use it efficiently, which means you rent that stuff out. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it takes multiple companies to do it. But yeah, no, we're podcasters, and that's what we want to do.
I love it. I love it. And the current project you guys have, we were talking a little bit ago, you're over 400 episodes deep now. And that is the show called I'm Tellin You. And I watched a little bit about this. I don't do a lot of research. Like I said, I like it to be organic and raw, which is just by definition lazy. And I don't like to learn too much about my guests because I like to learn as we go. But I watched some episodes and it looks like it's a couple guys cracking up and having a good time. And like you said, just talking about random things. And that's what Keepin It Rio started off as 205 episodes ago. It was myself and a few buddies, and we had some different personalities, and we would get some guests to come on live and call-ins and all that stuff, because the reality is this whole thing was meant to be from the time that I was a young man. And the first time I watched the Howard Stern show on the E channel, and that was probably back in, I guess, like the early to mid 90s. Maybe I was not quite in high school. And I always thought, you know what, that looks pretty fun. Now, I don't think there's ever going to be a day where I have strippers and I'm throwing baloney at them and stuff like that. But it's kind of got a little bit of that motif. It's kind of dark in here, and I've got a nice relaxed atmosphere, and I like doing it. And when we were doing those episodes, it was a lot of fun. It's kind of transitioned on as the time has gone by. And, the reality with podcasting is most episodes or most shows don't make it to episode 5. And my guys and I did about 100 episodes together, roughly, maybe 90 or so. And we've kind of changed it up a little bit now to where it's me and I'm doing one-on-ones, and I've, occasionally got a couple people on there. But as the evolution goes, it's turning into what it's ultimately going to be, I guess. And I'd love to get another opportunity to have some co-hosts that we could kind of bounce off, but looks like a lot of fun. Tell me a little bit about the process that you guys go through. You just said, everything is on the table as far as topics are concerned. Couple buddies that have been friends for decades. You know each other's personalities, so you can kind of bounce off each other. But tell me a little bit about how this thing got started and, talking your buddy into it. You've got a background, but as I'm aware, he probably doesn't have the same background. What's it like getting, someone to show up and do a podcast and commit to it to that level?
Yeah, I mean, dude, honestly, great question. Only because our origin story is hilarious, I think. So yeah, he has no experience whatsoever coming into this, and I mean, literally never been recorded a day in his freaking life. Not on camera, not even like at home on like freaking camcorder for Christmas. Like he's never been recorded. This guy. I, on the other hand, I'm a chef, again, retired restaurateur and chef and all that stuff. I had my own taco show where I was making street tacos on the street. And I mean, honestly, that was one of my more favorite things that I ever did because I love chefing. I'm also from Southern California, so I love tacos. My dear Lord, do I love tacos. But I've already had plenty of experience of being in front of the camera, on mic, and all that kind of stuff. We had just closed my last restaurant, which was in 2020. It was February of 2020. We closed that. We had sold the business prior to everything happening. It was completely happenstance. We're inventorying and cleaning up, and all of a sudden it's just like the news breaks. And it's like, oh crap, well, that was good. So I got nothing going on. I'm bored out of my mind. I'm spending my own money because I was a business owner, so I wasn't getting like all the good money like everybody else, kind of a thing. So it's like I need to make money. I like working for myself. I don't really, want to. So I'm like, what can I do? And the idea of that at that point, 4 years ago, is not everybody was already on this podcast train. So it was just kind of starting to really blow up as a thing. And I'm like, you know what? Let's do something like that. Like, I need to do a show. I got to build something. So I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I started thinking about it, and I'm like, dude, me and my guy, we have the most amazing conversations you can ever imagine. Like, we have the best dad jokes, the visual metaphors, like all these things that make for great comedy. So my thought originally was, hey, let's just record our conversations. I can go back through on the playback and start to pick things apart and develop these skits and a bunch of other stuff and turn it into actual show of sorts. But it just became this thing as we started recording ourselves. It's like the conversation is its own thing. So us inadvertently just attempting to try to put this stuff together, which is why he was willing to do us, because it's like, hey, you don't have to do anything. I'm just going to put a mic in the room and turn it on. And him and I almost at the same point kind of got to that place where it's like, can we just do this? And we just started recording ourselves and turned it into a podcast, which quickly my buddy picked up for his internet radio and became a talk show. So we modified it to that platform, and, we've gone back and forth. But yeah, I mean, 4 years deep of just trying to be two dudes talking shit in the garage, drinking beers. And now all of a sudden it's like, we're building a production company. It's kind of crazy.
That's awesome, though. And I love the way that those stories go because, like I said, it was the same thing for me. This started off as a concept where we were going to be basically going on once a week live, and we were going to be talking about things that happened in our roofing business. And it quickly devolved into a comedic genius, a production that everybody in the world was looking forward to every Thursday. And I love what you said, maybe you get 3 people watching. I went back and watched episode 1, and on my YouTube channel, I believe there were 18 views on episode 1. And that was almost 4 full years ago. I'm proud of the fact that 18 people saw that, but I'm also relieved that only 18. And, if anybody wants to go back and see how far we've come since then, episode 1 was pretty amazing, but we didn't know if we were going to do a second episode. My guys got on board with it. We started having fun, getting a little more loose, and just really enjoying it for what it was. And now it's a worldwide phenomenon. And, we're climbing up the charts. I was kind of getting into it like you, there weren't all those podcasts per se at that time. COVID hit kind of around the time that we were getting started. And I think that's when everybody started deciding, hey, I ain't got nothing else to do today. So I'm going to turn on the camera and I'm going to turn into a star. And, I had the same visions. The world is going to just see this and they're going to love everything about it. And it's been an evolution, but I've got a pretty good audience now. And I'm proud of the fact that I meet homeowners for my roofing business where I met a lady the other day. It was crazy. I had no idea who this lady was. She reached out to me online and said, hey, I need you to come look at my roof. I was watching your podcast the other day and I just think you're hilarious. And I was like, all right, well, if that's what it is, then I can use it as a marketing tool. It's really, like I said, more just some guy with an ego that always wanted to be on TV and always wanted to do it, but he just didn't have the ability to get himself there. And I can't be canceled now because I'm in charge of it. So God bless the internet for what it is. And I want to kind of ask a little question about that to you. As you guys got started, obviously, like you said, two dudes drinking some beers, talking about whatever. Not something that everybody in the world knows about when you first start doing it. And the audience is obviously pretty small, probably relegated to your friends and people locally. But as it continues to grow, you start to get some people. No, you still just got the same people watching from the beginning?
No, I'm just, our family and friends were like, oh, you guys have a talk show. That's great. Good job, little buddy. That was it. That's all the support we got.
Oh, they weren't even paying attention to it. So they don't even understand the brilliance that they've got.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, but I mean, honestly, yeah, I naively thought if I record it, Field of Dreams, if I build it, they will come. I'm going to record it. They're just going to love us. That's how it works. No, that's not how it works. Yeah, I mean, so again, so naively, our first 150 episodes, maybe even 180 episodes, audio only. Not a single drop of video.
Nice. I can appreciate that. I kind of started with, we were video from day one. And I was also dropping the audio onto the proper platforms. You can see down here at the bottom. I'm so lazy that it still says Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The truth of the matter is I haven't put an audio episode up in about 3 years. And nobody really ever says anything about it because I don't think anybody's checking it out still to this day. But let's talk a little bit about that. Okay. You do audio only and you're just doing it for fun. We start with the purest of intentions and it's like, well, the odds of us getting super famous from this are probably fairly small, I guess. But we always have these grand illusions in our mind. Millions of people are going to watch the first episode and we're just going to instantly be the biggest hit in the world. And I did early on have a viral video that came from it, which almost got me canceled after maybe like the 6th or 7th episode. It's still out there, but I had to take it off of World Star Hip Hop. I had a massive amount of backlash about something that happened. And I thought that was good publicity, but it was tied too closely to the business at that point. So my business partners were very aware of it. And they said, bro, you need to calm that down just a tad bit. But there was a video we had where there was a gentleman that was in a high-speed police chase. He got hit by a car that was going about 65 miles an hour. And one of the roofing guys that was there happened to be helping the police officer arrest him because the guy was pretty cracked out on whatever he was taking. And he got hit by the car. It didn't really faze him. He flipped 5 or 6 times, landed, got up, started walking, whatever he had. He was feeling no pain, but it got a negative review from multiple people, had over 1 million hits in like a day. And I thought we were on our way, but I had to get rid of that. So I guess the key question I have is when you guys start doing audio only, you're starting to get into it and starting to have a good time. You decide 180 episodes in, hey, let's add some cameras to this thing. Let's show the world these beautiful faces and what we've got going on. What was the mindset there, especially with your buddy, who to this point still is 180 in, still hasn't been on camera a day in his life? What was his mindset going into that? Was that something where he just said, oh yeah, let's do it? Or was there a little bit of pushback when you decided to make that change?
No. Yes. So basically I had come to the realization we're on YouTube. We should probably add video. So this is me finally thinking of it more into a business aspect to kind of start it. I take it to my guy and he's more or less, yeah, okay, I get it. That's cool. Yeah, we should pretty much do that. But it's so him not knowing, again, he's only like 180 episodes deep. The first few episodes we had crappy mics and recording equipment. It was, I think they were like $60 microphones that we plugged into my iPhone. Nice. Not the best recording. I have sound engineer background. So even with that, I was able to produce something that was audible, but to me, I'm like, it's still absolute crap. And my guy's like, oh, it sounds amazing. This is awesome. fast forward to that relative mark 180, he's now hearing the original audio to us now having the good mics, the soundboard and all that, just not doing video. And he's like, oh, so I listened to our newest episode the other day. I get it now. And I was like, oh my God, thank God. So yeah, when we get to that place where I'm like, hey, we got to do video, he had almost basically within a few weeks earlier had that realization himself of what it is to step up our quality of production. So no pushback. It was more or less a unanimous, yeah, we should have done this a while ago. And it's like, thank God. Because you're not going to do audio only on YouTube. That is not that's not a thing, people. That's not how this works. Just you at home know this. That's not how this works.
Yeah, that's legit right there. And a lot of people I think that's the downfall. I just don't want to be on camera. I don't like the way I look. I didn't like the sound of my voice until I realized if I trick it up with a Rodecaster Pro and a nice microphone, I sound halfway decent now. I made the joke. I sound like a total schmuck in real life, but this thing's doing it for me. So I can appreciate that. And I love the fact that you guys are just having a blast with it and doing your stuff. Tell me a little bit about what the future holds for the podcast. You guys been doing it for 4 years. You've been friends for 33. I'm guessing after 33 years, you guys are probably going to stay buddies for a while longer, at least. What's the future? You guys want to hit a specific mark? Mine's 2,500. You guys looking to do anything magical like that? Or is it just, hey, let's just do one at a time? And, we're never going to run out of stuff to talk about, but, is there an end in sight, or is there a game plan for that at any point down the road?
Yeah. So our end game is in fact producing a production company. The grand scale, like I said, would be the Philly world, where we have all of that fun stuff, restaurants, amusement rides, the whole gambit. But the logical end game for all three of us, because it's myself, my best friend, and our fact checker, who's now one of our co-hosts. But between the three of us, the result we're looking for is to set ourselves and our children and our children's children up for a future that they don't really have to deal with. So it's definitely financial freedom on a grand scale. In order to do that, we're aware we really do have to structure this out as a company, and it can't just be us on YouTube and that's it. We have to develop an entire business around us as a brand, which is basically what we're doing. So currently, while I was attempting to just blow up one of our channels, which was our main spot, which is where you can find I'm Telling You and all that good stuff, but it came to my understanding that it's like, well, if we're going to really do this, we do have to branch it out and we have to make it a large scale business. So I'm now currently not trying to blow up a channel. I'm attempting to blow up an alternate channel to get the second channel to blow up, to then blow up additional after that. So I've built an entire business plan out of it so that we can basically structure ourselves to a point where the three of us have our very unique and specific abilities and experiences that, there's plenty of people in this world that would love to have that input. So we, as these types of individuals, can offer our abilities as consultants. I mean, it's just a term, but really what it comes down to is people are willing to pay you for your time to just talk to them to find a way to be a better person. I mean, it's something to read a book and try to draw your own stuff, but to get that actual individual that did it to sit there and pick their brain, people will love that experience. So if we can build an entire business around the idea of being able to do what we do, have all of these additional outputs, but then also pay people. I mean, we're helping the economy. We're literally making the world a better place on a financial and emotional level. And that's kind of what we want on our personal outputs for it. But yeah, again, it's we need to have that structured so that not just our children, but our children's children's and so on and so on. None of them have to work anymore, man. None of us should have to. This is bullshit.
I agree. And that's what I'm working on over here too. I'm trying to get into where it's like, you know what? I just want to sit in front of the microphone for a couple hours a week, maybe make a few $1,000,000, solve all the problems in the world, and just kind of be cool. And if I want to go do some roofing, yeah, okay, fun, but I don't want to have to rely on that because this is what it's all about. So you guys are building a production company. You've got multiple channels. Let me ask you this. are you going to diversify your programming? And what I mean by that is wink, wink. At any point down the road, are you looking to take on some other shows that maybe could be a part of a network or something to that nature?
I mean, honestly, yeah, that would, I think that would only be the appropriate move to make, because in order for you to scale out business wise, to have that large of a company, you take on so much overhead that if you can't find a way to generate revenue from it, it becomes a hobby, not a business. And by that, I mean, it's going to cost you money, not make you money. And that's obviously anti-productive. So yeah, the general sense is we would want to take on other companies in that regard, but it's really more beyond just that. It also goes back to, like I was saying, we want to be good for our community. So, I mean, I myself have had this idea a long time ago when I went through business school and whatnot. You look at these massively large companies that have multiple layers, multiple companies within it, this corporate umbrella and all that good stuff. Really what they're doing is they're finding ways to keep all of their money within their own company. I mean, that's the thing with like Amazon. Amazon does all of these sales and they have all these other companies that work under them, but they didn't do their own delivery. They were paying for their delivery. I mean, it was at one point where they were spending a little over 18 billion a year just in deliveries. Well, do you know what UPS was spending at that point in time as their actual expense line for their entire company throughout the world?
Couple
17 billion. So if you look at it as Amazon does, it's like, wait a minute, I'm spending 1 billion more than them. And they're doing hold on, they could scale down and do only their deliveries, and it's going to save them literally billions of dollars. So it's that same thing where, you can only do so much internally and it's a good thing. But yeah, we definitely would, on that kind of a scale, it would behoove us to have other companies work with us and under that, because we're obviously not going to corner every single market. I'm not Jeff Bezos. I'm not trying to like spend 20 hours a day figuring that out. No. Let's hook up our friends. Let's take care of our people that are doing the same thing as we are. Let's promote that good-minded community. It's just smart.
Indeed. And I think that's the right mindset to have about it. And I see nothing but huge success in the future for you on that front, because why not, right? If you don't see it in your own mind, it's not going to happen. So we've already come up with Philly World. And I know that you said earlier you're not going to say Philly World, but you've mentioned it now by name a couple of times. So I think after the third time you mention it, Philly World's a real thing. And one day maybe there's going to be a Keepin It Rio corner at Philly World, and one young boy can dream for sure. So I definitely appreciate that mindset, and I appreciate the business aspect of it. It's not something I've ever really thought of in too much depth, but you make some very good points. If we're going to do this, it needs to be something that is going to have some sort of purpose. And for me, it's always just been about fun. And, if a couple people watch it, great. But as I've continued to grow with it, I've noticed that the audience has developed and grown and matured, so to speak. And now I'm at the point where I get people from all over the world that reach out and are like, hey, I'd like to be on your podcast. I'm in Australia. I'm in England. I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm all over the place. And the question I always like to ask for other podcasters is this: when you start to realize, okay, it is just us having fun, we're cutting up in the garage, we're drinking some beers, we're having a great time, we decide we're going to grow the channels, we're going to make it a little bit bigger. At what stage did you realize, you know what, maybe there are more than one or two people that are actually listening to this show? What's the depth of your current audience to your knowledge? And the one that really interests me the most is, what's the most unique interaction that you've had with one of your listeners? Like, say, maybe someone from Vanuatu in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I've done an episode from that location once, and I had no idea what that even was. But you start to find out that people are listening. Tell me a little bit about some of the interactions you've had with your fans.
Yeah, but before I answer that, I want to just go back on what you were just saying about putting this entire idea of what we're doing into a business mindset. I mean, you yourself, you own your own business. You're aware of these kinds of things. So you already have that knowledge and understanding, and in having that mindset, it does behoove you. It does give you a better ability to just focus on taking care of your customers, which makes you a better individual as a server, which just makes your company that much more lucrative. So, I mean, that's where I kind of got was on that point as well. Is like, I need to run it as a business, because when I do, I care about my customers and what they're getting, which is just my audience. So yeah, nice segue into my greatest experience with an audience member. I was all right, give me a moment, because I'm gonna have to get myself collected. My mother had just passed not too long ago. This is one of my most favorite stories to talk about her. So if I get a little, please forgive me. But so I'm out doing a local event for a buddy of mine who has a art collective, and him and I, when I was doing my taco show, was kind of one of my first individuals, and he was bringing me some good guests and all whatnot on the show, and very much local supported and all that kind of good stuff. So he's putting together an art show that he does, and he's like, hey, I could really use you. Cool, I'm gonna totally come. But in doing so, I'm like, hey, Mom, you know, you've never really gotten a chance to see me work myself as Philly D, this public figure type individual. Would you like to come to one of these events where I'm being this, you know, different individual, like, you know, this I don't even know what you want to call it, but this individual that I am, this person, this persona, that's what I'm like. So I'm this persona that I'm giving off. Hey, come to this event with me. Let's have a good time. She's like, yeah, of course. Well, we go, we're doing the typical, we're going around talking to this person, that person, blah, 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 checking out the different booths and whatnot. And my guy at one point's like, hey, I need you for a hot second. I need you to, I'm like, oh yeah. Hey, Mom, is it cool if I got to dip out for like 3 minutes? And she's like, oh yeah. Hey, go do your thing. So I go and do that. I come back and my mom is like giddy. She's this little child. And I'm like, look, I'm like, what the heck? She's just like, so this person came up and was just like, oh, is that Philly D? And she's like, yeah, that's my son. Oh my, I love it. His show is a big, like, fawning all over me. I still to this day don't know who this individual is, but my mom, gets to meet this person and does this whole spiel. And then I come back to her and she's just like, oh, this person was just like, they know all about you. And I'm just like, oh, and my mom has never been more proud of me, at least, that I've seen from her. So being able to see her do that just because a single individual recognized me was probably, I mean, to this day is the greatest experience I could ever have with, an audience member. I didn't even get to meet this person, but what that person did to my mom, that did to me. So, if you remember this event, by all means, please reach out to me, phillyD@itystudios.com. That's my email. Hit me up. But that's, you think as a person in the limelight, you're going to have this amazing experience with a literal individual. So the irony that this was with an individual that had that experience with my mom and made her, that in and of itself. Yeah. That's probably going to be my greatest experience ever.
Honestly. I agree. And I'll tell you what, I've got a mom story too. And very similar. My mom passed away just a little, maybe a year after we started the podcast. So she didn't get to really see some of the things that have happened since. I had a guest on a couple weeks ago, which was Shayna Mayfield. Her husband was a NASCAR driver, and my mom was a huge fan, and she just loved him. And I told Shayna, I said, my mom would be crying right now, tears of joy and pride. But one of the last memories I had from her was she was with me in College Station, Texas, and I had her brought down from Ohio because she was under hospice at that point and just wanted to be with my mom. And she was coherent to the point where she would have conversations with the nurses and such. And I was doing an episode of my podcast up in my second floor studio that I had at that point. And I came down and I heard my mom talking to the nurse, and she said, my son has a podcast and it's just so great. I watch it every week. And I thought, you know what? If I never get another fan, as long as I live, my mom got to be a fan of what I was doing and she saw it. And that's just something that will stick with me for the rest of my days, much like you. Some of the other fan interactions have been great, but hearing my mom bragging about it to the nurse was like probably the coolest thing that ever happened. And it made me really realize, you know what? That's what's important. If no other human being ever watches the show, the one that mattered the most did, and she was proud of it. And, you know, it only went downhill after that for me, but that was one of those moments where I'll never forget it. So I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, the fact that your mom got to see that side of you that she didn't even know existed, and got to see that there were actually people out there that said, oh my gosh, you know, it's Philly D. That means the world to you, to me, and hopefully to anybody that's ever had a mom, which I think is pretty much everybody. So that's pretty amazing story right there, my friend.
Yeah, no, yours as well. Yeah, it's odd enough as we continue talking how many parallels you and I have. I mean, we're the same age. We got started about the same time, having the same experience with our mom. I mean, so we've both been business owners. I mean, you're currently a business owner. I, on the other hand, I mean, technically I do, but yeah, it's whatever. But the same regard is the thing that I've enjoyed the most about meeting strange people and doing all of this. So many of us are very much the same person, just with different experiences. And it's really taught me to not only just accept myself and love myself for who I am, but to accept others and love them for who they are. And it's been a very humbling experience as well. Good ego killer, which I think is good for any of us, honestly.
Hugely important to realize sometimes that you're not the one that the world revolves around. And no matter how much we'd like to think that about ourselves at times, there are some times when people just, they're happy to let you know you're just a regular schmuck, bro. You're on there and you're trying to be famous. I'm in roofing, so a lot of haters in the roofing industry. It's a low level barrier of entry to get into. You don't have to have a college degree by any means. And with that comes a lot of different personalities and a lot of people that don't like when you put yourself out there. And like you said, humbling. I've read some things about myself over the last 4 years that I didn't know. And I always try to be cool with everybody, but I come to find out that some people don't love my sparkling personality. It annoys a few people. And I've gotten really good about understanding that about humans and just saying, you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm having fun. You only live once. That was the lesson I learned from my mom. She was here until she wasn't. And then it's like, well, damn, that's going to happen to all of us at some point. So you might as well make the most of it. You might as well do what you love. Enjoy talking to different people, refine your skills. I do sales a lot. So I talk to a lot of different people, and just doing this podcast has helped me from that aspect. So I always tell people I do it because it helps me as a whole. And it's an educational tool. It's really an ego thing, but I don't let people know that as much as I should. So it's kind of cool. I love doing it. I want to ask you about another aspect of your show. Before we started the recording, you told me about one of your guests that you've had on multiple times. Tell me a little bit about your guests that you've had on the program, how you go about finding them, because you and I connected through a Facebook group where I basically said, hey, I want to talk to some cool people on my podcast. Anybody in? And you were one of the people that responded. And here we are, maybe, 3-4 weeks later, doing an episode, having a good time. How do you guys go about finding guests? Do you have guests on frequently, or is it more of like a special occasion when you do it? What's that look like?
So, I mean, it's twofold. One, I would reach out to individuals that I would come across through other friends that were basically, they needed that leg up. They were putting in the work. They were grinding it out. They'd been at it for years, if not decades. And it's like, you know what, if I have any kind of a voice, I have to help these people out, because I wish I would have had that for myself as well. But I mean, it's, we honestly, I had an agent for a while. So we had a publicist, that was going out looking for people for us, as well as bringing us people too. So, I mean, there's many avenues that you can go for finding guests. Ours was, we had to pay for certain people, which is understandable. Oddly enough, the individuals that we didn't pay for provided better content than those who we did pay for, ironically. But yeah, I mean, are you looking for what would be good sound advice for someone in our shoes, or is it just
Just a personal experience, your individual experience with guests, with how you've gotten them. I'm intrigued by the fact that you've paid people, because honestly, I've never paid anybody a penny to be on this show, and I don't think I ever would, because I feel like when you get to that level where you're telling someone, you need to give me $50 to grace your airwaves, that's kind of when douchebags start to show up. And you just kind of validated that with your statement. I think the people that are grateful to be here because it's just a cool experience are the ones that give you the most. But tell me a little bit about that. And like you say, you've got an agent, you got people finding the perfect guests for you, but interesting guests that you've had. Who's been the most interesting guest you've had on your show?
I would say our most enjoyable guest on a personal level, only because of the way the interaction was Larry Hankin, who played Mr. Heckles on Friends. He was Old Joe in Breaking Bad. I mean, he was in Annie. He was Laverne and Shirley, like tons and tons of stuff. But him being on Friends, my oldest is named after Rachel's baby, which is Emma. And ironically, Larry Hankin hated being on Friends because apparently most of those individuals were very pompous individuals. As you could figure, getting $1 million+ per episode, they're probably
certainly would be as well.
Yeah, right. Slightly pretentious, but it wasn't his greatest experience. He wound up getting canned before his 6th episode, which would have made him a main character and would have gotten him under union rules, certain pay. So he went from just a extra making pennies to somebody who's like, oh crap, I get a paycheck for this now every time I show up. They fired him just prior to that. I didn't know this. I thought, him as Mr. Heckles was one of the greatest things. My daughter is a avid fan of Friends. I am myself, but her being named after it and just being a fan regardless. I got him to tell me on camera, actually not even tell my daughter, Emma, it's okay. You can hate your father for more things than Friends. Because I had made a statement to him. I was like, my daughter would hate me if I didn't say something about Friends and the fact of her name and blah, blah, blah. I gave him that quick spiel. And that's his literal answer, is just like, no, it's okay. You can hate your father for more than that. And I'm like, Larry, I love you. So you get this individual who's, again, he, we were talking before, did like 190 roles and yet is an absolute human. He's comical. He's having a real conversation. And it was probably one of those moments where I came to that realization, because I was aware of, but it started to truly solidify in myself, is all of us are just people. Doesn't matter how much of this or that or this or any of that you've done or not done, or we're all just people trying to make our lives what they're supposed to be. You got to give each other a little bit more slack, including yourself. You at home, like, this is no joke. Give yourself a little bit more. Let everybody else have a little bit more. Just be more understanding. Be patient.
Very sound advice. And it comes with age and experience for sure. And I'll tell you, I've had some very unique guests on Keepin It Rio myself. I've had, just about every walk of life, every corner of the earth. It's been amazing. I would have never in my wildest dreams imagined some of the people that I've had to speak with and some of the stories. But I always like to ask what the favorite story is from your podcast. You've got over 400 episodes. I'll start by telling you my favorite story about my podcast. I've had so many cool stories about different things and different people. When it was myself and my buddies, we would talk about some of the most ridiculous stuff. But about a year ago, I had a guy on that was a stand-up comedian. And I had never heard of him, which was kind of surprising because in the 90s, he was the most famous white guy on the BET channel. And I knew nothing of this. So I went back and I started doing some research, and he was telling me all these cool stories. And he had, he'd met Tupac and he hung out with Billy D. Williams and he was shooting pool. What's that?
What's his name? Tell me. Who is this person?
His name was Dante the Comic. And
I know this individual. I mean, not personally, but I know who he is.
Okay, so this guy was great, right? And we get into this conversation. we're talking about different things. And I'm like, Dante, tell me a story, and he's talking about this time when he's a teenager, right? And he was a boxer, an amateur boxer. And he's got a friend whose father owns a pharmacy in town, wherever he lives. And this guy's daughter comes running into the gym one day and is like, Dante, you need to get down here to my dad's drugstore. Muhammad Ali is here. And this dude's wearing his boxing gear, right? So he takes off running down the street, gets over where Muhammad Ali is at the pharmacy. Muhammad Ali takes a look at him and says, hey, you're a boxer. I can't do the Muhammad Ali, but he did the whole thing. And Muhammad Ali says, hit me as hard as you can, and the guy he looks at me and he's like, I hit Muhammad Ali, bam, punched him. Nothing happened. Muhammad Ali just kind of looks at him and says, is that as hard as you could hit? And he says, no, I could definitely hit you harder, whatever. And Muhammad Ali says, well, I'm going to give you one more chance. You hit me as hard as you can, or else I'm going to hit you as hard as I can. And they're in a parking lot in some rural town in America, a teenager fighting Muhammad Ali. And the dude just hauls off and socks Muhammad Ali. And he's like, you know what? After the second one, Muhammad Ali respected me, and he didn't try to do anything back because he knew I could take him at that point. And it was just one of those. I had a dude that fought Muhammad Ali in a parking lot, And to me, those are the most funny and interesting stories. He was talking about when he met Flavor Flav, and he used to hang out with Flavor Flav backstage at events and all these different people. But that Muhammad Ali story, I think, is the one that's the longest lasting as far as my favorites with Keepin It Rio. And that brings me to the question. Tell me about your favorite in the 400 plus episodes, whether it's just you and your friend talking shit in the garage, drinking some brews, whether it's the guy from Friends, whatever it is. What's the most memorable / interesting / funny story that you guys have uncovered to date?
Well, my favoritist, but then also most funniest, 2 different episodes. Favoritist, I'm aware I'm not conjugating correctly. I don't give a crap. I'm a father.
Nobody on my podcast episode is going to correct you because they don't know that you're speaking incorrectly.
Well, I have kids, so we say like the bestest, and I liked it, and it's whatever. But yeah, my most favorite episode, and my co-host will agree. The 2 of us, and we'll refer to this on our show as the Valentine's Day episode. Reason being, I literally, personally was in a place emotionally and mentally where I just didn't care enough about anything anymore. And not to say that I was in a place where I was attempting to remove myself from this world in a sense, but nothing meant anything to me anymore. And I called him up and I told him, I was like, bro, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm done. Like, there's no purpose or point in what I'm doing anymore. And it was on Valentine's Day, and I'm calling him, and it's like 9:00 at night. And so luckily him and his wife had just finished having, their Valentine's Day. So everything's all good. He turns to his wife. He's just like, I got to go take care of my guy. I'm sorry, but I got to go. And I wasn't expecting that from him. I was calling him to tell him, I was in a place where nothing was having purpose or point anymore. So it's like, why bother? Which he took to the fact of like, I'm willing to do something about that. And it's more of like, I'm done. So he shows up at my house to make sure that I'm okay. We start chatting for, 10 or 15 minutes. And this was literally the first time ever in the 1.5 years of him and I recording together where he turned to me and said, we need to turn on the equipment. It had always been me where like we start chatting and I'm like, bro, why aren't we recording? This is great stuff. Like, so it was the first time he had ever done that. But then also for myself, having to have that emotional mental place, but then him and I wind up sharing some very personal stuff together that the content alone, it just showed us as vulnerable human beings. And that's a very beautiful thing because so many of us, while we're completely human, typically we don't want to show that vulnerability. We don't want to open up. And the 2 of us did that. And that's just, hands down, it's probably one of our worst audio recordings, and not like one, but it was a part of a massive collection because it was in the first, I want to say like 50-ish episodes. So it was just we didn't have the good mics, good recording board, any of that kind of stuff. So it wasn't a great audio quality, but the content was inspiring. So, I mean, yeah, that's by far, hands down, my most favorite episode. My funniest episode, as far as a favorite, myself and my co-host, and we brought on one of my really good friends, Zach, who he had been on the show twice with audio. This was his first time doing video, and he brought a friend of his that we all called Dooney. That's his name. But the four of us, my co-host and I, had been talking about developing a drinking game. We do so many movie quotes. The idea was every time anybody does a movie quote, you say what the quote is, then everybody has to drink. So we developed this. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's nostalgic as well as we're drinking. But we had developed this game and had been talking about it, and we had never actually tried it. Well, we get our two guys on, and it's like, hey, there's four of us and our fact checker, which was a literal fact checker. So she was very minimal as far as her input. But there's five of us, and we're playing this game. And yeah, we're like 30 minutes in to our warm-up show, because we would do a warm-up show before the actual talk show. So we're 30 minutes into the warm-up show, and there's been so many freaking movie quotes. We're all like 2 beers deep already in 30 minutes. This is not a joke. That by the time we get to the actual show, I think each of us had 4 or 5 pints of like 6 to 9% beers each. We started talking SNL, and it got hilarious. And I mean, I still don't remember most of that episode, but when I go back and watch it, I remember every single piece of it. But yeah, I mean, as far as like funny goes, that is hands down one of my most favorite episodes. I had some of the best sound bites for shorts I've ever produced. They didn't exactly perform well as far as YouTube goes, but my personal feeling, hilarious.
And at the end of the day, that's really what this is all about. As long as we're having fun and we've got memories like that. I've had parties on my show before where we were eating chicken wings. My sponsor was a hot sauce. We were eating wings and drinking margaritas. And it seems like those are the ones that are the most enjoyable. And I can definitely appreciate a group of people doing movie quotes and drinking beer as they go, because it doesn't get any more American than that. So much respect for that. Much respect for everything you guys are doing. We're well over the hour. I told you I was going to try to keep you around an hour. So we're well past that now. There's plenty more that we can talk about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this to my friend Philly D. I'd like to invite you back to another episode of Keepin It Rio somewhere down the road. I told you already, my goal is to take out Joe Rogan. When I take out Joe Rogan, I'm going to have you as my first guest on that next episode after we become number one. You and I are going to do movie quotes, and we're going to talk, all kinds of craziness as far as that goes. But before we wind this up, there's 2 things I'd like to do. Number one, I'd like to give you an opportunity to promote yourself, promote your brand, promote your beers, promote anything you want to my audience. How can people follow you? How can people listen to your show? How can people enjoy the wonderful beverages that you guys are cranking out on a daily basis if they're in the tri-state area, or if they can, maybe order it and get it shipped? What are some things that you can promote to, kind of help cross brand each other here and maybe get one of my audience members to be a loyal, raving fan, lunatic of yours?
Yeah, you can. So the main channel for us on YouTube would be ITY Studios, all one word, and the ITY is I'm Telling You, because that is our main show, and that's really how we kind of came about. Which honestly, quick backstory, is a Biz Markie quote. So Biz Markie on the Beastie Boys Intergalactic album, as well as the song. At the end of the song, he says, with the echo, I'm telling you, because he's doing his own, 16 bars, as it were. And it became this thing where him and I just kind of going back and forth when we got really deep into a conversation, we would say, I'm telling you. So that just became the natural name for it. But yeah, you can find us at ITY Studios. You can also find me at All Things Philly D on YouTube as well. And I mean, that's literally the same thing, all one word, All Things Philly D, PHILLYD. But you can find us doing all that kind of stuff. You'll get us doing I'm Telling You, but if you check into All Things Philly D, you'll see my taco show stuff, as well as my experimental. So I've been doing some shorts, some short long form videos and a few other things just to test out what the algorithm does. So it's kind of become my like test labs for ITY Studios.
Terrific. And I know where I'm going to go now because I'd like to watch some of the taco shows because to me, that's fascinating. I love real life stuff. I love seeing things as they are happening out on the street. My man making street tacos and telling stories as he goes. I just had a guy on the other day who I think I told you goes around to gas stations, buys food, goes out on his tailgate, and he critiques the food, and he's got millions and millions of views. So there's definitely a market for street tacos. We need to increase that and maybe bring that back in some form somewhere down the road. Or maybe it's one of those things that after the fact becomes a massive hit and, ends up making you billions of dollars. And then Philly World becomes a reality based on the taco show that we just found out about. So I love that. Before we wind this episode up, there's one thing I always need to do. And I always wait until the very end and I almost forget almost every episode. But that's to thank my sponsors. My sponsor is roofer.com, ROFR. As you're aware, I am a roofer. But let me tell you a little bit about roofer.com because I harp on this every single week. A lot of my fans are roofers. A lot of them one day dream and aspire to leave the law firms and the doctor's offices that they work in now to become roofers because they see how much fun it is. But roofer.com is a software program that takes you from the very initial contact with your homeowner, your prospect, all the way to the very end and the final payment, the 5-star review requests, and all that stuff in between. You can get measurements directly from this program. It can take those measurements, transform them into fully detailed proposals that actually have links to my podcast on them. So can't really mess with that kind of technology. And Roofer has been my sponsor for now going on a third full year. Love my friends at Roofer. And again, that's ROOFR.com. If you're in the roofing world and you've been watching my show for any amount of time, you hear me talk about it every week. And if you haven't signed up for Roofer yet, I do not know what the hell's wrong with you because I continue to tell you how great it is. So that's what we're talking about with Roofer. Philly D, I have enjoyed this episode tremendously. It's great to always get someone that's creative, that's been in the podcasting journey. You've got double the episodes as I've got, but we've got a similar path and a similar time doing it. I really appreciate your insights this evening. I'm going to do more research and I'm going to go like all of your stuff because it's been a great conversation. And like I said, I'd love to invite you back for another episode somewhere down the road. If you ever need a guest for I'm Telling You, this guy right here, I think is pretty damn interesting and he likes to talk and tell stories. So until the next time we meet, my friend, thank you for taking the time to be here. Thank you for spending your Saturday evening. It's 11:15 where you're at right now on Saturday evening. And folks, that is just the dedication that we have to this craft. We love doing it so much that it's like, this is our Saturday night. So thank you guys who watch Keepin' It Rio. Thank you to all the fans. Always, like I remind you, like, subscribe, tell your friends, go outside, start screaming, Keepin' It Rio. When the cops show up, make sure that they know to check the like button on YouTube as well. And that's just my way of basically whoring myself out to the world. And that's what it's all about. So until next time, this has been episode 205. I will see you guys next week for 206. I have no idea who our guest is going to be yet because I haven't even spoken to him. So it'll be a lot of fun, and I always enjoy this. So thank you guys for watching, and I end it with the corniest tagline in history. Until the next time we see each other, keep on keeping it real.